to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only daily television platform dedicated to you, the SME and the MSME viewer. This show aims to bring you the biggest voices and the most expert opinions to empower you, the entrepreneur. Today, I'm in conversation with Vineet Nayar, a man who doesn't need much introduction. He's a former CEO of HCL Technologies and the founder of Sampark Foundation, talking to us about entrepreneurship in India as well as education.
Millions of young students in India face the prospect of lost opportunity and lower wages because their primary and secondary schools are failing to educate them to succeed. Even after spending several years in school, millions of children in India cannot read, write or do basic math. This learning crisis is widening social gaps instead of narrowing them. To tackle this issue, Vineet Nayar and Anupama Nayar started Sampark Foundation in 2005.
Thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, Mr. Nayar. Such a pleasure having you
Thank
to
you for
kick this
inviting
season
me.
off. So let me start with the last time that we had the opportunity of interacting with you, which was at the Leaders of Tomorrow Awards 2017. In that speech with our entrepreneurs, you said entrepreneurs should not be like ants, but they should be like ants that become butterflies that are set to soar. What perhaps do you want our entrepreneurs watching the show to keep in mind when it comes to change? The single biggest thing they should keep in mind.
So you must understand the word transform means changing the form of something permanently. An entrepreneur tries to transform a business model, a marketplace, a product proposition, a customer view. So if you are in the business of transforming, you need to learn what does transformation really believe in. I believe that large organizations are full of ants, rich ants, fast ants, fat ants and thin ants, beautiful ants and ugly ants. But they are all doing the same thing year on year without thinking about transformation, without thinking of changing themselves. Entrepreneurship is about an ant wanting to be a butterfly. And that is what the entrepreneur needs to think. He needs to go into the zone of impossible and saying that I don't want to be an ant anymore. I don't want to do what others want. I don't want to do the same thing again. And I want to transform. I want to be a butterfly. And that's how the concept of the sole purpose of existence of an entrepreneur starts from his wanting to be a butterfly. And if he doesn't have it in him, he should not become an entrepreneur.
Okay, so you're someone who stepped away, if I can call it that, when HCL Tech was at its peak to start Sampark Foundation. Perhaps you can dig into your own personal experience and talk about what you thought was that point at which you said, yes, I'm ready for that change, and to basically use that to talk to our entrepreneurs to say, this perhaps is how you can know you're ready for change.
So I have three journeys of transformation or entrepreneurship. My first started 6 years out of college, where I formed Comnet, which was in communication and networking. And that journey was that when I had enough of what was going on, and I said I wanted to do more with my life. I was young, I was stupid, I was very fascinated with technology, and therefore Comnet was born, and was born on a technology idea.
Sure.
The HCL transformation journey was on an idea which is completely different, was on an employee first, customer second idea, which is how can you put them on the center of your equation, increase the energy level of the organization and deliver a 6x revenue growth in 7 years' time, which till that time was unheard of. Sampark Foundation was my biggest challenge. And this entrepreneurship challenge was a different kind in terms of how do you bring about large scale social change when all the elements are not in your control. And there the central idea of frugal innovation is what would drive that change. And our central idea of using an audio device, using a Sampark Didi, and reaching 7 million children across 76,000 rural schools was an experiment of entrepreneurship where an innovative idea, which is so powerful that it will galvanize and ignite a classroom and transform it, is my journey. So I've gone through what I call three journeys of transformation, the three journeys of entrepreneurship, all of them driven by different ideas, and all of them are successful because of different reasons.
Okay, I want to talk about Sampark at this point. It is the largest primary school education system of its kind globally. Very briefly, for the sake of our viewers, if you can talk about perhaps one, where the idea for that came about. Why primary education? And two, how you've managed to build it from an idea into what it is today.
Every idea starts with a problem statement. So the first thing is problem statement is 144 million children, which is 1.14 crore children in 760,000 government schools. Learning outcome, grade 5, most of them cannot count or speak in any language worth. So the learning outcomes are very poor, problem statement. Second, in design thinking comes constraints. So what can't you change? You don't have resources of the kind which will reach 760,000 schools. So it has to be frugal. You can't change the teachers because we are talking about a very large number of teachers. We're talking about 1.4 million teachers who do not have the capacity to teach, but you can't change them. So in design constraint, it is very important to understand what you can't change. So therefore, that comes to the third thing. What can you change? You can actually ignite the classroom. So how do you ignite the classroom? My inspiration came from three things. First, when I went to villages and watched them watch a Bollywood movie, they put the bamboos and put the white sheet, and it's an immersive experience. They forget about their sickness, they forget about their poverty, and they are immersed in the Bollywood world without thinking about where they are. So that's an immersive experience. Can I bring that to the class? Sure. My second inspiration was watching people using cycles. So can I bring Vidya Balan's voice into the classroom? And we combined this and created an avatar called Sampark Didi in that Vidya Balan voice. And she teaches English and maths using that audio device, which can be charged by a dynamo. And we surrounded it with teaching learning material, and it ignited the classroom. Suddenly the classroom is Bollywood, it's songs and it's dance, it's maths and English. Now what is happening is while the students are learning from the children, the teacher is also learning. So we solve the design problem, and that is how it is spread to 76,000 schools and impacting 7 million children.
How does an education and a teaching system like yours then fit in with the traditional teaching methods and systems that we have in India? What I'm trying to understand is that you were talking about the public schools in India. That is where the real problem is. How can your system, for instance, become more mass to be able to impact then grassroots education?
Fundamentally, our education system is based on imparting knowledge. The critical aspect of knowledge is application of knowledge, and our education system is not taking that into consideration. So our education system, even in private school, is wrong-footed. So we are building and churning out knowledge warriors who are actually not relevant to the world of tomorrow. So Sampark Smart Shala, by igniting the classroom using Sampark Didi, is actually using knowledge to apply it to daily life. And therefore, we are not just teaching the public school system, we are also applying that to daily life. And we are launching an app now, which will be available to the teachers to be able to use the knowledge to apply to daily life problems and ask more questions than give answers. I think our education system is wrong-footed, and if we have so many children which are wrong-footed and coming out in the wrong way, we have a disaster in making unless we solve it pretty quickly.
Okay, you're saying something very interesting in terms of churning out students who are not ready for the real world. We've recently done a panel discussion on the leaders of tomorrow, where it was being argued that vocational courses need to be introduced at, say, class 5 or class 6, and students need to be taught about the real world. On what side of the argument are you? Do you think perhaps it's too early, or do you think we should start it earlier?
I think class 5 is too early. I think it's wrong. I would say class 8. And it should be certified courses. And it should not be vocational courses. So my definition of vocational courses is a little different. I don't want carpenters and masoners. I don't want unorganized laborers coming out of our school. These kids are very bright. They're capable of a lot more. So I would have vocation of tomorrow, which is more analytical, more applied knowledge, more entrepreneurship of a different kind. But I would say A, class 8, B, certified courses in entrepreneurship, so that they can start their own small businesses rather than teaching them carpentry skills.
Okay, so you're saying you're not interested in, perhaps the informal sector having more carpenters, etc., coming out. Research by the government of India and data that's just recently come out is showing that 2/3 of all workers in India are in the informal sector. There's clearly then an opportunity to ensure that these workers, these unskilled workers in the informal sector, are absorbed into the formal sector. How do you think that dichotomy perhaps is fixed?
I think you hit the nail on the head. And that does not, so the answer, so what should you not do? Expand the informal sector. Sure. You should not do. What should you do? Expand the formal sector. And therefore, by having capacity building of the informal sector kind in schools is expanding the informal sector rather than the formal sector.
Sure.
Formal sector are jobs, right? Jobs in organizations or self-created jobs. So we need to force our corporates to have entrepreneurship program, to have internship programs. So skills which are more job oriented and not, the low end unorganized sector oriented is the answer which we need to move. You are absolutely right that we need to move from unorganized to organized sector, and the answer is by investing in the right skill development.
Okay, so speaking of skill development, the problem is much bigger when you look at the students coming out of colleges from courses which train them specifically for the jobs that they're entering, but they don't have the skill sets. NASSCOM has said that only 20 to 25% of all students coming out of colleges today have the necessary skill sets for the jobs they're entering. How's that then going to be fixed?
Out of the 3 million people working in our industry, most of us in the industry are actually doing application maintenance and desktop maintenance and BPO services. And for us to say that the kids who are coming in are not relevant is not right.
Okay.
I think the issue is that the industry is wrong-footed on the skills which is required for the future. And therefore, the ability of NASSCOM to retrain or the organization to retrain its existing 3 million people and make them relevant for the future is a bigger problem rather than make the coming in college. So we should not transfer the ownership to education.
Mr. Nayar, I'm going to take a very quick break on that note, but there's so much more coming up on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, the only daily television platform for you, the MSME entrepreneur. Today, we are doing a very special conversation with Vineet Nayar. And I want to talk about the role of technology in a country like India in the field of education. It's clearly what is going to take education to the masses, to the grassroots levels. But do you think there's enough happening there?
So what Sampark Foundation is going to launch in the next 1 year is we are going to put all the content for grade 1 to 8 free of cost for all parents in multiple languages, available on a Netflix kind of an app where you will be able to look for the content and you'll be able to get the content. We will be able to gamify the content. We'll be able to give you the worksheets. So I think what we need to do more and more is we need to treat education not for profit, but we need to treat education as an area where we need to invest as entrepreneurs who have been successful. We need to give back to society. The government needs to invest and make it free. Education being free, I think, is a very, very critical aspect of what Sampark Foundation does today.
So I want to talk about innovation in the field of education in India. Are you happy with what's happening?
I don't think there is enough innovation in education happening in India. I think it's like our e-commerce. We borrowed and stole ideas from Amazon, replicated them here, refused to innovate the Indian way, and therefore most of the Indian e-commerce companies are being sold, and therefore they are not built to last, like HCL, Infosys, Wipro were built to last, or Reliance were built to last. And therefore most of these are being built to sold. In education, exactly the same thing is happening. If you are borrowing ideas out of US and you're borrowing ideas out of Germany, you're replicating them and you're launching them with your own brand. Innovation is about doing something which doesn't exist. So like Sampark Didi being born, igniting the classroom that's innovation. So therefore, I would like to see more innovation, more innovative ideas, more Indian way of doing it. We saw, cooperative movement innovation with Amul. We saw right to education as innovation. We saw this new healthcare bill which is coming as innovation. We saw demonetization as innovation. So what is that big idea in education which is innovation? I've not seen it. Everybody is copying it. Right now, we need application of mind. We need transformative innovation in education, which I'm not seeing as of now.
Okay. Do you think perhaps it's a function of the ecosystem? And the reason I'm asking you this is one of your biggest peers, one of the biggest peers of HCL Tech, I remember in an interview with us previously said, our investors don't understand why we're investing into R&D when there's a hit on ROI. So even if big companies are facing that kind of pressure, do you think it's trickling down then to the lack of innovation by entrepreneurs?
I'm sorry to say that, but I've heard that excuse many times.
Okay.
We should ask ourselves, what is the role of a CEO?
Sure.
A role of a CEO is to have a vision of tomorrow which nobody else has. Convince the board that it is worth pursuing. Convince the investors that it is worth investing. And that's the role of the CEO. So when you say the investors don't get it, it is lack of your ability to communicate rather than lack of investors to get it. The people who have vision, FC Kohli had a vision, Shiv Nadar had a vision, Premji had a vision, Narayan Murthy had a vision, Nandan Nilekani had a vision. All these guys had vision and they didn't have a problem convincing their investors to invest in them. So I don't see that as an excuse. I don't see, investors get it.
Okay.
Investors get it. You have to be able to find a way of convincing them of what are those proof points for you to be able to make investment in it. And then they will come by the hordes.
Okay, so do you think for an entrepreneur perhaps is ever going to be a question of innovation versus expansion and growth? And if so, then what's your advice?
I think my advice to entrepreneurs is to fundamentally ask, don't fall in love with your own idea. Fundamentally ask yourself, what is the innovation there? And push yourself very hard to innovate. And once you understand what is the innovation and what industry, market segment, customer profile, customer behavior, it is changing, communicate that to the investor.
Sure.
Then I'm not like others, right? I'm attempting to do this, and these are the early proof points.
Sure.
If you do not have those innovative ideas, or you are not obsessively investing in that, and you are moving from one customer to another customer, one opportunity to another opportunity, you'll be dead pretty soon. Great companies are built on great ideas. Great ideas do not come day one. Great ideas come from obsession to constantly pursue that dream. So you saw Steve Jobs constantly pursuing, fail 15 times before he succeeded 16th time. Same is true with Bill Gates. So all good entrepreneurs do not have a great idea day one, but they are obsessively. Sampark Foundation, we didn't have a great idea of igniting the classroom on day one. It took us a lot of failures. It took us a lot of falling down to come up with these ideas, but we were obsessed of the fact that we need to find a way of igniting the classroom. So if you are obsessed about innovation, you will find it. You need to be obsessed. You do not need to surrender to those low-hanging fruit of a customer opportunity here and a customer opportunity there. And then everybody will rally behind you.
Okay, I want to talk about perhaps the opportunity that exists for private businesses, for private entrepreneurs and individuals to view education as an opportunity where they can work with the government. I'm essentially trying to understand, is PPP in India in education perhaps the best model to look at?
No.
Okay.
And the reason is because your objective is for profit and the government's objective is not for profit. No amount of PPP will work, predominantly because there will always be a tension at play. The government will always believe you're making too much money. You will always believe you're making too less money. Forget about PPP. There is so much opportunity in education if you can innovate. For example, why would you not create a bot-based model where I can ask a maths question and you can answer me? I'm sitting on a table and I can ask a physics question and immediately the bot will respond to you. Why would you not create a machine learning opportunity for me to be able to understand the kind of questions I ask and tell me, hey Vineet, you're poor in calculus and you need to buff up on that. Why would the bot not automatically go to YouTube, search out great videos and say, these are the 3 videos I recommend for you. So there are opportunities like this. Then there are opportunities of creating hand tools for people to apply science experiments. Can you create with bamboos? Can you create microscopes? Can you create? So there are lots of opportunities there. There are opportunities to creating workbooks which are interactive, which are imaginative, which will help expand the thought. Right? So there are lots of opportunities there. There are lots of opportunities of training kids in new skills which schools are not teaching. So the education opportunities are tremendous. But you need to depart from one coaching center there or one school there or my pedagogy is better. You need to be innovative. You need to have, again, transform, change the form of education. Be obsessed about changing the form of education. An Indian spends more on education than he spends on food. So how can there not be an opportunity? There is enough opportunity for you to, but don't try and partner with the government. Partner with the government if philanthropy is your initiative.
Okay.
That's what we are doing.
Sure.
So if philanthropy is the initiative, government is the only source to try and reach large number. If business and profit is your initiative, be private like Baiju is.
Okay, so speaking of the government, are you happy perhaps with some of the regulations that exist right now? For entrepreneurs watching this show, if you say that this perhaps are 1 or 2 things that I'd like to see changing as far as government regulation or the framework is concerned for education, what is it?
So as an entrepreneur, you must understand the reason you have an opportunity is because there is a problem.
Okay.
The reason you can do something is because it is difficult to do and others are not doing it.
Sure.
If it is easy to do and everybody is doing it, you don't have an opportunity. So first is don't get disheartened with what the government is not doing.
Okay.
See it as an opportunity. That's point number one. Point number two is what can actually the government do? Government can only reduce bureaucracy and reduce the overheads of you doing your business. But that is not a material reason for your success or failure. Your material reason for success and failure is in the market, whether your products are being successful or not being successful. And that is the reason, yes, I hope the government, has better labor laws, less Inspector Raj, clearer rules, all that stuff is fine.
Sure.
But I do not believe that can be an excuse which can prevent you from succeeding if you really want to succeed.
Okay, I want to ask you a big picture question, if I may, as far as the Pisa rankings in India are concerned. We're abysmally low year after year. And you were talking about how most students in public schools in India perhaps can't even read texts even in class 5, 6, 7, etc. What's going to fix that?
So first is an understanding that we do not have a demographic dividend, but we have a demographic crisis waiting for us right in our face.
Okay.
We are not going to have youth, we are going to have unemployable youth. Forget about employment opportunities are there or not. We'll come to that later.
Sure.
But we will have unemployable youth. Why? Because our education system is fixed at 3 layers, is broken at 3 layers. At the bottom layer, where we are not able to impart basic education, and at the top layer, where we are not applying, we are still delivering knowledge and we are not helping people apply their knowledge, and therefore these are what I call unemployable youth. So first is to understand that the problem is large. Second is to there is where you need the PPP approach,
Sure.
where you need the private enterprise innovation or applied on government schools to try and fix it, which is what Sampark Foundation is attempting to do. Then you need private enterprise to bring transformative innovation in private schools to try and break away from this knowledge-based, marks-based, CBSE, all that stuff is fine, but applied-based learning in our colleges, in our schools. I think those two, enough vocabulary, enough conversation, enough panel discussions, enough newsprint time on it is going to drive that with innovators coming in. I keep on saying again and again, in India, we do not celebrate innovators. We celebrate entrepreneurs, we celebrate business leaders, but we do not celebrate innovation and innovators. We have to have a different class of innovators and people who are innovating and not copying from the West, but doing something which nobody has done before. The moment we start celebrating them and celebrating them in education, I think education will start transforming. But you're absolutely right, if we do not transform education, I do not think all the good stories being written about India will come true. We need to fix education, we need to fix healthcare for all this opportunity in front of India to become true.
Mr. Nayar, thank you very much for speaking with us here and kicking off really the season on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You.
That concludes part 1 of the special interview with Vineet Nayar. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you can get in touch. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. On Facebook, you can reach us at Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. You can tweet at us as well. LOT_ET Now is our official Twitter handle. My personal Twitter handle is Sunanda_J. Do stay tuned. We'll bring you part 2 of the special conversation with a man known as one of the world's biggest philanthropists and management gurus. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.